seated.
Good morning. We're going to try something different today. We've come to the end of our liturgical year today, which means we're putting the Gospel of Mark away for 2 years. Bye-bye, Mark. I thought we might end our year reading Mark by giving Jesus, really, the last word. Just a moment, we'll read Psalm 93. Then I'll reenact Mark's story of the Last Supper and the night of prayer in Gethsemane, a word-for-word resuscitation of it. But before we begin, I'd like to draw your attention to something about this passage, a tool that Mark uses throughout the gospel. In this passage, he speaks in double voice. The first voice, and the most recognizable, is Jesus speaking to his disciples. The first voice just is the characters of the gospel speaking directly to each other. The second voice is Jesus speaking directly to you. Mark almost always has Jesus speaking in both voices at the same time, speaking directly to his disciples and directly to us. The gospel is not just for those who happen to be living during his life. Jesus speaks to Christians for all time. Mark meant for the church to read and to reread this text, to wonder at it, to hear it, and truly believe that Jesus is speaking to us, to you. If he is speaking to you, and if you do truly believe it, then you must also ask, what will I do with these words? How will I answer the command of Jesus? What command, you might be wondering? At the Last Supper, Jesus takes his entire life's ministry and lays it before his friends, his disciples. As he does throughout the gospel, he clarifies his message by contrasting two images against one another. In this story, the images of contrast are feast and betrayal. The Last Supper, Jesus lays down on the altar the great thanksgiving, the Eucharistic bread and wine. He lays down a feast of abundance. His entire ministry of healings, resurrections, and moments of forgiveness. So, too, does Jesus lay down his tears and dread? To those gathered around his table, he explicitly names the coming betrayal of one, the coming failure of all. Jesus lays down rejection itself, offering it up to God. All the frustrated and upended plans, all the blindness and hard-heartedness, Jesus was hated, feared, and even laughed at. In the Last Supper, Jesus lays both images before the disciples. Which will they choose? The division, chaos, and death? Or will they choose healing, wholeness, new life? The superabundance of the table or the betrayal of men? The disciples and the church, of course, chose both. Peter will show courage and follow Jesus right into the imperial courtyard, into the very heart of darkness. But then he'll falter, plead ignorance, deny, and flee. But then the resurrected Jesus will pick Peter up off the ground and send him out again, forgiven, as a chief evangelist, the new life in Jesus. And so it goes. In Gethsemane, Jesus shows us what life with God is like. First, he retreats into the garden and rests. He prays there. He offers to the Father his open and broken heart. Jesus has confidently told others, for God, all things are possible. And so he waits for God to break in and save him. And he waits. And there is no answer. So he prays again. And there is no answer. 3 times he prays. And 3 times the Father does not answer the Son. Then Jesus rises, and he calls his disciples to rise, to be a risen people. He finds us in our slumber, downcast, discouraged, and abandoned. He calls us to prayer, to keep awake. And then he sends us out with these words, get up. Get up. Let us be going. Together, we go into the world to speak the love of God, to proclaim with courage and power, rest, pray, rise. The world needs you, and you need God. Amen.